Hey gang, John Bacarella here with your Lake St. Clair Fishing Report, brought to you by Sportsmen's Direct. It is Thursday, July 21st, and we're 3/4 of the way through July here, and we are in the middle of a massive heat wave, if you haven't figured that out. Hopefully your AC is working. So far ours has been working, but man, been hot. Crazy windy the last 2 days. The wind blew out of the south hard yesterday, been blowing out of the west most of the day today, but blowing hard. So I know a lot of you guys have not been out there fishing. That water has gotten to be gin clear out there in most parts of the lake, at least until this blow. So we'll see what this blow does, if it turns things over a little bit. Probably not going to help the American side out too much with mostly offshore winds. But hopefully we'll get some color coming back down through the St. Clair River system with all this wind. But then again, we really kind of need an east wind to do much damage, to cloud things up. But that's what you guys have been fighting, is that gin clear water out there for the last several days, maybe probably over a week. And just crystal clear water where you can see the bottom in 14 feet. Sure doesn't make it easy fishing, especially on the flat, calm days. So it's been tough out there. It's been a tough bite for some of you guys. But that doesn't mean that you still can't catch fish, and that also doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of the situation. So we're going to talk about what you can do when you got gin clear water conditions. First of all, that may not have to do with putting fish right now in the cooler, but may make it so that the rest of the year or going forward in the future, you're going to gain some knowledge for putting fish in the freezer. So obviously right now, if you can see the bottom, slow down and start paying attention to what's down there on the bottom. I know you guys, a lot of you guys have got all the side imaging and everything, but there's absolutely nothing that beats a bird's eye view of what's going on down there. So on a slow day when you're out there and you've got calm conditions, take some time, let somebody else drive the boat, go up there on the bow with the GPS in one hand and the polarized sunglasses on, and pay attention to what's down there on the bottom. Look for small piles of rocks, look for timber, look for old boat wrecks, look for anything down there, weed edges, transitions from different bottom compositions, anything and everything. And also have a little notepad close by. You can use your phone too, but sometimes it's just easier just to jot a quick note, or use your phone and talk into it with those waypoints as you're taking down different structures out there. All that information can be so valuable later in the year, because most of the time you can't see the bottom. So being able to see the bottom is a huge benefit right now. Same thing on the river, St. Clair River. I was talking to James Mackey earlier this week, and he was talking about they're cruising down the river, you know, at like 20 miles an hour, and they could see the bottom in 15 to 20 feet of water out ahead of the boat as they're cruising down the river. So when you got conditions like that, you need to take advantage of them and really pay attention to what's down there on the bottom. Mark the points off, the holes, submerged items down there on the bottom, anything and everything, weed edges, all that stuff. It's all such valuable information for later in the year. Mark them with, you know, relevant structures on the shoreline. If you don't have a GPS, especially if, like in the river situation, you can literally mark it based, you know, with a picture of a dock or of somebody's house, or, you know, lining up two things on shore. But anyways, just take advantage of that right now. If the fishing is slow, go for a drive, cruise around, let the breeze blow through your hair, let the bugs blow out of the back of the boat, and pay attention to what's going down there on the bottom. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now, probably until we get to fall, just before ice up, and then I'm going to tell you to do the same thing and pay attention to where the weed beds are. But we'll talk about that again later. Hopefully we get clear conditions later in the year, right before ice up. As far as the fishing goes, we still got guys that are walking the walls up there on the St. Clair River that are catching walleyes. With the clear conditions, either if you're fishing in the daytime, you're really going to need to go deep for these fish, you know, 35, 40 feet and deeper in many cases, or wait till just at sunset or at night and these fish are going to come right in on the seawall, and that's where guys are still catching fish. They're right up, and in some cases you can hear them surface feeding. So there's a lot of fish up there, and actually the north end of the lake has still had a pretty significant hatch of mayflies going on all week long, and that's, you know, that actually helps that bite up there on the St. Clair River, and it also helps up on that north end of the lake for bass and for perch. I was talking with some guys that were kayak fishing earlier this week up on that north end, up by Bouvier Bay, and they got into some fantastic smallmouth fishing down just outside of the mouth of the North Channel down there. And what the pattern they were fishing was a mayfly pattern. They actually found a huge slick of mayfly casings mostly out there, and underneath that huge slick was just bazillions of perch. And they weren't after perch, but they were after smallies, and the smallies were pretty darn close by to that big slick. And once they zeroed in on them, they caught fish there all day. So that's just one of those. It's one of those things. Now that north end of the lake, in some cases, where those different channel mouths are coming out into the lake, along Grassy, North Channel, South Channel, Middle Channel, the Snai, all that water coming out of those areas right now is going to be cooler. And that water temperature down at Belle Isle when I checked today was 75 degrees. So it has really warmed up this week, and it's like, duh, right? It's going to. It's 90 degrees all week long. The nights are like 80 degrees. So the lake is not cooling off at night. And so the temperature's been rising. It's gone up like 3 degrees this week. Some of the nearshore areas, I'm sure, are like pushing 80 degrees, and then the canals, although with that offshore wind today on the American side, it might have cooled things down a little bit. But anyways, regardless, the lake is getting warm. These fish are moving out, and some of these fish are going to start moving up into those channel mouth areas and up into the river for you smallmouth guys, right? This is probably going to push some of those big fish up into the rivers, up into the channels, I should say, and up into the main branch of the river as well, for that cooler water. So anyways, that's you know, that just warm. So we're in the summertime pattern now. That the channel, that bite on the walleye out there by the main channel, like by 26 up through the South Channel, has seemed to slow down quite a bit. I think a lot of those fish have either moved right on up, or some of them have moved out into Canadian water, into that deeper area out there by the weather buoy. I'm sure there's some smallies out there now too, because you don't just go up into the channel to get cooler. These fish can also move out, but when they're moving out on the other side of that channel, they're really in Canadian water when they get into that 20-foot level out there. So I know you can start focusing out there for those fish as well. Had some guys also fishing down near the South Shore in search of smallies, and they fished almost all the way to the Belle River Hump, and they caught perch all along that South Shore down there in those weed beds. So there's perch down there as well. Walleye action, there's some action going on down by the south end of the dump, and then up on that northeast corner of the dump still. So there's still some walleye action to be had on the American side, albeit it definitely has slowed down now with the warmer temps. Now maybe next week, if it cools off a little bit, things will pick back up, but you know, middle of the summertime, so the fishing for these walleyes is definitely going to slow down. Fish are going to move out deeper. With the clear water, they're going to become much more nocturnal, and even if they are active during the daytime hours, when you can see down 14, 15, 16 feet, it really makes it tough on the boaters unless we get some color in the water, because I mean, it's just simple physics, right? If you can see the bottom, those fish down there can see you when you're going over top of them too, and there's limits to how many times you can buzz through those fish. Even when you're trolling with an electric trolling motor and running those boards out there, you can only go over that school of fish so many times and pluck fish from that school before you break it up, push them down, or they just kind of turn off on you. So I mean, the crystal clear water really does hurt. But like I said, it's been blowing out there for 2 days. I'm hoping we get a little rain in here. If we can get a little rain in here and add some, you know, some runoff to the lake, that should help a little bit. Now, that Canadian side, when we've had these rainstorms, has been producing some algae. And I did get a report from one of my buddies in the DNR that Erie's had, probably still does, at least a couple of days ago, quite the algae bloom going on down there. You know, this heat wave that we're in, that's what's going to happen. You get these thunderstorms, you get that runoff, you get this super hot weather, and you get these big algae blooms forming down there. So, we haven't had that on the American side here on St. Clair, but looking at that satellite image, looking over on the Canadian side, you can definitely see the green in the water over there and going all the way down into Lake Erie. So I haven't heard any complaints from any of the guys over on the American side on St. Clair of the algae. So maybe that color will help you a little bit. You could fish that line over there where that water starts to turn green before it gets like too crazy, too much algae in there, and fish that. So, oh man, let's see. I know I've been saying a lot here. Wanted to give a shout out to a guy up there. I think he's up in Marysville. Was looking down off of his dock into the water. Saw a couple of fish down there. Remember, gin clear water, right? Like so 10, 11, 12 feet, daytime hours. Looks down, sees a couple of fish. Throws a crawler down there, boom, walleye number 1, boom, walleye number 2, middle of the day. So go figure, you know, there's a lot of fish in the system. So, you know, anything can happen, but you gotta find them, and the fish can't be too spooked, and, you know, for them to cooperate with you. So for those of you guys that like to chase sturgeon, sturgeon season is open now, and there are charter captains out there like Michael Downey at Relentless Grind Charters, that this is the time of the year that they kind of really enjoy, and it's a special fishery up there on the St. Clair River. So if you haven't ever caught a sturgeon, and maybe you don't want to take the time to, you know, invest in all the equipment and everything, and you know, go out there and do it on your own, I would suggest maybe hooking up with somebody like Michael Downey and checking out that sturgeon fishery up there. Otherwise, you can actually hit the shoreline up there in some areas and have a chance at hooking a sturgeon even from shore, like Perman's rigging up there. So, but I did want to mention that the sturgeon fishing has started up there, and you know, it's one of those things that everybody should cross off their bucket list, catching one of those beautiful lake sturgeon that we have, and the great fishery up there on the St. Clair River. I think that's about it for this report. Weather tomorrow is supposed to be pretty good wind-wise. Weather on Saturday is supposed to be pretty good wind-wise according to the weather forecast. Then it looks like it's going to blow again on Sunday, and then hopefully next week it cools off a little bit and we get back down to some kind of moderating summer temps, and it's a lot more comfortable for you guys to get out there and enjoy the great fishery we have with Lake St. Clair. Hey, if you like this video content and you want to get updated as soon as the next video is out there, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon, and you'll get notified as soon as the next video is up.